Hi everyone, my name's Tori and you're watching Cortree TV. Today we're talking about disability and work. Our guest today is Ashton Forrest, human rights advocate. Welcome to the show, Ashton.
Hi, Tori. It's nice to be here.
So to start us off, can you tell us a bit about what you do, your work and your background?
Well, whenever I talk about my work, I like to make it a little complicated, but not so complicated. The short story I like to say is that I'm the CEO of my own life, where a lot of the things that I do include advocating on behalf of myself, other people, and a lot of the work that I get compensated for involved advocating for other people and improving systems. So right now I sit on the Post-Secondary Education Standards Development Committee for the AODA. And I also at times do consulting work where people reach out to me and ask for my opinion, and I'm glad that they're willing to pay me for that. I'm currently a student at Western University, and I'm doing my MA in philosophy, where my research focuses on, global justice, human rights, anything that interacts with moral, legal, and political philosophy. And it's interesting how that all overlaps with a lot of things in the disability world and how we navigate systems. I'm going to say one other thing about my work experience. I haven't always been a person with a disability. So when I was more able-bodied, I noticed the difference between how easy it was to find a job because I can use my body to access employment and do basic labor. But now as a person with a disability, there's a lot more to consider when I access employment.
Can you say a little bit more about how those considerations come up for you when you're looking at job opportunities?
Oh, for sure. I think about transportation a lot because I rely on paratransit. So I have to think about if I have to work in person or if it's going to be remote. If it's in person, I have to think, how can I get there in time? Is the paratransit system set up so that I can make it there in time? How early I need to get up? Are my PSWs able to come early enough to help me get ready so I can meet my paratransit bus? Like there's a whole system in place.
Mm.
I also have to think about the actual physical environment where is it too cold, too hot? Do they have accessible washrooms? Do they have elevators if I'm not working on the main floor? Are there accessible doors because I have a mobility scooter? Will it be able to fit in an office space or navigate the physical environment within and surrounding the area that I would be working in? Prior to having a disability, I've had lots of interesting jobs. I worked in retail and wore heels all day. I was actually a security job where I worked 12-hour shifts. Me, tiny little me, was a security guard. And, even though we were supposed to be prepared to defend ourselves if anything happened, nothing did really happen. But, I was able to go to the gym and do that kind of stuff. I've worked in libraries where a lot of it was being on your feet, so putting books back on shelves. I never really thought about the physical environment. I never thought about how I would get there because, yeah, if there's a bus route that gets me there, great, works out. It wasn't all this planning about time management, about thinking about other services and how everything interacts with those services.
Mhm. So for someone who may not have navigated that before, can you walk me through how you figure that stuff out from job posting to surfacing all of that other stuff that is going to be a maybe deal breaker?
A lot of it is research and like I see job postings, I look at the location where they're at. I think about what routes I would take to get there. I think about what time I would have to leave home to get there in time. I think about also connecting with the business itself or the employer to see what supports that they have. Are they willing to do things hybrid, remote, be more flexible in the hours? So do I have to be there at 9 or could I show up at 10 and leave later? All those things. And because I'm a person with a chronic illness that requires a lot of specialized medical appointments, I also ask those questions. What's the policy around, having to go see a doctor and making up that time because there are lots of demands on the medical system in terms of appointments, testing, routine procedures. And then because of the unpredictability of my disease, I also have to say things just come up, and are they willing to work with me to be adaptable?
Mhm.
I also like to reach out to, if I know other people working for that place, I like to ask them about culture. Is the culture something that's supportive of people like me? Do you know other people who've struggled in working for the, or that institution or employer, and how they get accommodations? And you kind of get a vibe as if that's the place you want to be in. And then after that, it's hard because it's like now you have to do the selling point, where if it's a culture that's very accepting, it's easy to sell yourself because you don't have to think about what if they start looking at you like, oh, we can't do this, we're worried about that, this is going to be difficult. There's more to play into that, where you have to do more reassuring versus selling yourself.
What has been the impact of COVID on your work experience?
Well, the obvious one that everybody talks about is the ability to work from home, which creates a lot more flexibility. So I don't have to worry about fighting to get a booking on paratransit to get to somewhere, to get to somewhere else, to get to my job. I don't have to worry about where the nearest accessible bathroom is because it's right by my desk. It's essentially my apartment's so small that my bathroom is my bathroom. I had the flexibility between meetings and whatnot to lie down on my bed. And I am guilty of being someone who's been to meetings while in bed in my pajamas with my camera off because my energy and my was just so low, but I can still participate by listening and then unmuting myself when the time was necessary. Also, I think COVID allowed for people to take sick days very seriously. Before it was like, are you really sick? Or you should just suck it up and show up at work. Now with COVID, people are more mindful that we don't want anybody to get sick, or we don't know if we could be spreading something dangerous. So there's a bit more lax policies about like bringing in doctor's notes and all those other things, because again, there's still the ability to work from home and be productive. And also then the primary concern is keeping everybody safe. Another thing is saving energy. And the flip side of the whole COVID thing, while things were made easier in some respects, it was made a lot more difficult in others. So COVID, the years of COVID, there's been a lot of turmoil in the media. So we think about Black Lives Matter, we think about people getting sick. For me, a lot of my key medical treatments were delayed. So my ability to physically function was significantly reduced. On top of that, PSWs. So there was a high demand for PSWs, and some had to make the choice between working for multiple institutions versus working for one. And then due to the high demand of PSWs, services were reduced for those that had more ability than others. And I fell into that category where I'm not in my bed all day and can't get out. I can get out and do some basic things at a low rate, slower. But then again, that takes into my time, it takes into the energy that I need to put elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And also, as an advocate, people constantly reach out to me about how to navigate this because of COVID. Now I'm not getting this accommodation because of COVID, or they're not using captioning when I need the captioning for my Zoom meetings and all that. And then also being racialized. When it came to Black Lives Matter, it was a lot of talking about race and having those heavy conversations that were everywhere. They were with my family, they were with employers, they were with friends. It was with the general public, where people wanted to hear from you because you're the go-to of the intersection of race and disability. The problem with that is that with all the chaos of the pandemic and losing services and reduced access to treatment, and then having this whole emotional weight put on you, it takes a lot out of you and it becomes exhausting. It affects your mental health. It made me think that I could not be a genuine contributor to my work that I did with the province. And I'm glad that the culture and the environment was set up that I could reach out and say, hey, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Like, I just feel burnt out. There's just too much going on. And because of the environment that I worked in, they were happy and willing to say, let's hear you. Let's see how we can help. What would be useful? Don't worry, you've contributed so much. Your feedback is so valuable. We don't want to lose you. You can take breaks. You're working in a team. So sometimes the team can take on things and you can participate asynchronous. I can't even say the word, but you don't have to be at a meeting all the time. You could send notes back and forth and whatnot. And just being in that environment where I felt supported, it's just like, oh, great, I can continue doing that work. If the place that you're working for is not accessible and can't accommodate you, then that becomes a problem. Because I remember trying to find office space at one place, and every space they put me in, it was like, these are new builds. Why do they not consider people like me? And it's kind of discouraging when you have to be at a place where you were never considered as a person that would possibly work there. And if you do, work there, you're expected to overcome barriers and figure it out, versus those places taking the onus to help make that space more welcoming to you.
So then what would be your number one best advice for hiring managers and HR professionals, leaders that are looking to make their place of work more diverse and inclusive?
Oh, okay. So I think I have lots of advice, but I guess the number one thing is something that I sort of like echoed throughout this conversation is culture. You need to make sure that your culture is clear to everybody, that it is welcoming. It does include people with disabilities. We do consider you. Our environment supports your being here. We want to help. So making it clear through the application process, the interview process, and then when people do accept the jobs, being willing to help problem solve and navigate that space. Encouraging the business that these HR people work for to, whenever they're doing anything public in the media, make sure it includes people with disabilities so that we can see ourselves working there, because we see, as you project yourself out there to the community, that people with disabilities are there. And there's a lot of other things, like if a business is a part of a business improvement area, BIA, they can use their voice to say, well, we'd love to have, we have employees who have mobility aids, but it's difficult for them to navigate the sidewalks to get to our location during the winter. So yes, the business can clear their sidewalks, but what about everything surrounding the business? So they can probably do work with the municipality about that. They can talk with the municipality about, like, we have great people that we would love to work here, but they can't find accessible housing near our places. So there's ways that businesses can use their, I guess, power to advocate for better environments surrounding them. So that way people with disabilities can be involved with their workplace, especially like when it comes to transportation. When I think about pure transit services and just navigating those, if there was ways transportation could be made more accessible in general, having those voices that are more powerful than my individual voice to say something makes a difference in how the community is able to support people to get back to work or into the workplace.
Thank you very much for everything that you've shared today. It's very powerful, and I can see what an incredible human rights advocate that you are. So thank you for joining us today, Ashton.
Thank you for having me. Take care.